I am very happy to be here to present for your consideration our new strategic plan. I think the last time we really talked with you at depth was back in January or February when we had an offsite and kind of had caught you up to where we were and got a lot of great feedback from the board, all of which we have since incorporated and now have this plan that is here for your consideration. So if we can go to the slides. And now if we can go to the old-fashioned way and have someone come up and move the, turn it on. Such demands that you're all making of me. Okay, so the old turn it on plan seems to have worked. So as you all know, but just really for the benefit of the public, the strategic plan really is what guides the agency. It guides our financial decisions, our operational decisions, our policy decisions. When every project or decision or report that we bring you is relating to the strategic plan, and we always identify for you what parts of the plan it's advancing. The current strategic plan was developed in 2011 and 2012 and approved by this board to go into effect for years fiscal 2013 to 2018. So as we are coming to the end of fiscal 2018, a couple of years ago, we started thinking about the successor to the current strategic plan. These are the steps that we took you through, or that we've been going through for the last couple of years to get to what we're proposing today. To kind of summarize the changes that are in this new proposed plan from what we've been working under for the last 5 years or so is a refinement of the vision and mission statement, is essentially retaining the core structure of the plan, which is the 4 goals, but redefining and moving some objectives around to kind of better fit and have a more logical organization. We have updated our values along with defining statements, which you will see, and significantly established a 2-year implementation cycle that will be aligned with the budget process. Having the 6-year plan that was somewhat set in stone back in 2012 had its advantages of continuity, but obviously a lot of things have changed in the intervening time, and I'll speak to some of those. So we thought, given how the dynamic in which we're operating seems to be much more dynamic, we thought it might make sense to do this on a refresh on a 2-year cycle. So this shows some of the things that either we are putting more emphasis on, re-emphasizing, or that are kind of things that were not very prominent in the previous plan, such as emerging mobility services and technologies, as they weren't as prevalent back when we established the last plan as they are today. But there are many other things. I think climate adaptation is much more on folks' minds today than it was. We're very much, particularly because of what's been happening in the city, focusing on equity and affordability in a more explicit way, and always, of course, retaining our focus on transit first and Vision Zero, and even Vision Zero itself hadn't been adopted. So, of course, we had safety as our #1 goal, but now have Vision Zero more explicitly as part of the agency's strategic plan. So the core elements of the plan are the vision and mission statements, the values, and the goals. So I'll just walk through those for you. And this is the proposed vision and mission. You'll see they're not too dissimilar from what we have today, but I'd say a little bit more crisp and focused. So the vision being excellent transportation choices for San Francisco, and the mission being that we connect San Francisco through a safe, equitable, and sustainable transportation system. We spent a lot more time this time around on the agency values than we had in the last. There were values. There were actually, I think, 2 sets of values in the current plan, but they weren't as robustly developed as part of the process to develop the last plan, including with public outreach and in-reach as we did this time. So it's something that we focused a lot on. We wanted to boil it down to really the core things that we want to make sure that we are projecting both internally to our own staff and externally to the people of San Francisco that we serve. And these three, we thought, encapsulated best the values that we should be bringing to everything we do. So in terms of the four goals, as I said, the goal structure remains essentially the same. So goal one is our safety goal, and we do have, you'll see on the upper left of the slides, our kind of shorthand for the full goal name. But goal one is to create a safer transportation experience for everyone, with objectives focusing on Vision Zero, on transit safety, and on security. So a pretty straightforward, clear, and explicitly number one, it being the goal for safety. Second goal is that with the shorthand of travel choice is to make transit and other sustainable modes of transportation the most attractive and preferred means of travel. And that really focuses on transit service, which really is the workhorse of sustainable transportation in San Francisco, but then all the other sustainable modes, whether it's walking, biking, taxis, car sharing. And then also an explicit focus on congestion and parking, given the importance they are to people who live and work and visit this city, and the impact of those on the sustainable modes of transportation. The third goal, shorthand, is livability. So our livability goal is to improve the quality of life and environment in San Francisco and for the region. And you may recall, I think, when we discussed this last time, bringing the regional focus, I think, has become increasingly important for us, as we are very much part of a region. We're not an island, even though sometimes we like to act that way. So a number of different objectives under this goal, which is a broader goal. Equity is one. Equity has always been part of something that we've done, but we are raising it here to the level of an explicit objective in the strategic plan. Because as I said, I think in today's San Francisco, it's more important that we do so. Recognizing our role and the link between land use and transportation. There's a lot of land use decisions that get made, and they have different levels of transportation input, but they all have transportation impacts. So we want to kind of model some of the best practices that we've had in terms of engaging in the land use decision making in the city, so that it is sustainable from a transportation standpoint. Obviously, dealing with emerging mobility services. I just walking on the way here, I heard of yet another one that might be coming to us soon. I won't even tell you what that is, in case it was a joke, but I think it wasn't. But obviously, we need to have focus on these. If people are going to continue to have ideas of ways that people can get around San Francisco different than they are today, and we need to be prepared for that. Accessibility, always a key objective of ours, and want to make that explicit in this plan. Environmental stewardship is obviously an important part of why we exist, and there's much that we do directly and indirectly to impact that. And then finally, and this was our outgoing gift to our chief financial officer, she insisted that we have financial sustainability as an objective, because it's great to do all this stuff, but if you can't actually afford it, then you're not going to be able to do it or sustain it. So financial sustainability is important. And then finally is our service goal, and that's to create a workplace that delivers outstanding service. We are all public servants in this agency. We're here to serve the people of San Francisco. So we have objectives here explicitly on public outreach and community engagement, something that you've been seeing as a theme for the last couple of years. Focusing on our employees in terms of their morale and wellness, in terms of the safety and the environments in which they work, making sure that both the workplace and those that we engage outside the workplace are diverse and represent the people that we serve, are inclusive, so that people feel welcome. And then finally, making sure that the mechanics of the agency, the business processes, how we actually do what we do, that we continue to strive to make them more efficient and more effective. So those are the four goals. In terms of how we measure ourselves on those goals and objectives, first of all, the city charter establishes standards that we will always continue to report our performance relative to. But we also established a number of new metrics based on feedback from Policy and Governance Committee meetings over the years, and to align with some of our new objectives. This is a sampling of some of them. Service gaps in communities of concern, for example, speaking to equity issues. And so these are the metrics that we will be sharing with you all and the public on a monthly basis. And soon we'll be, for where we don't have them, we'll be setting targets for the metrics. So we're not just giving you a number, but we're saying here's where we are now and here's where we want to get to. So how do we make this happen? Is that from the plan, which has the 4 goals and 16 objectives, we will really have developed the performance metrics and targets. And then the real meat of making this a live document, and the idea of our strategic plan is that it's really a live document that really impacts the work that we do. It's not something nice and shiny that sits on a shelf. The real meat of that is the development of what we call the strategic actions. And those are the specific actions that we're going to take under each of the objectives in order to help us achieve the objectives, which in turn will help us achieve the goals. So the real work, we kind of, I guess, had a pre-kickoff of it yesterday, though this is, of course, all subject to your approval, to start the process of developing out those actions. And then we meet on a regular basis internally and then report out to you now quarterly at Policy and Governance Committee on our progress with those actions towards meeting the objectives. Oh, and I should also note the other bullet there is that another way of making it real is not just having these actions, but having this whole process incorporated into employee and performance evaluations. So, for example, all of the deputy directors of the agency that report to me within their own performance plans list all the actions that their divisions are responsible for, and that we flow throughout the agency. So there's real kind of clear expectations and accountability for the implementation of this plan. So reporting is critically important. We want to be held accountable, and in order to do so, we need to be transparent. So we will continue, as we have been, to put the actual metrics numbers up on our website each month, provide more in-depth reports to you at Policy and Governance every quarter, and then through other means such as the controller's analysis and the MTA annual report, kind of bigger picture reporting out. But the data does help tell us whether we're on track or not, so the reporting and accountability is important. And as I said, it is meant to very much be a living document, and there will be changes. By the time we next meet, there may be another new emerging mobility service operating in San Francisco. Other changes could happen at the state or federal level, natural disasters. So we will continue to assess and adjust as necessary. And we will now, in each 2-year budget cycle, and normally this will be a little bit ahead of the budget cycle, we'll be bringing you any proposed changes to the plan every 2 years. So that's the strategic plan, the document you all have, and it was up on our website last week. It's, I think, fairly clear and concise, and I think it reflects a lot of the great input that we got from you, but from many members of the public, many staff members, and a lot of great work. And I do want to acknowledge Travis Fox and his team at the performance unit within the Finance and Information Technology Division, who have done a great job working across the agency, internally, externally, to get us to this point.
Thank you very much, Director Riskin. Now you've piqued my curiosity about what this new emerging mobility device is going to be. Can't wait. I will stay
Electric
tuned on
strollers.
that. Electric strollers.
You heard it here, maybe not first.
I think what I'd like to do before I open this up to directors for questions and comments is go ahead and take public comment. And I think, given the scope of this, Ms. Boomer, let's go ahead and go 3 minutes on this item.
Madam Chair, we have nobody who has indicated an interest in addressing you on this matter. Nobody's turned in a speaker card, that is.
Comes Mr. Weiner. Mr.
Herbert
Weiner.
Weiner, some questions of clarification. You talk about parking and congestion, and yet parking spaces have been removed, driving lanes have been removed. Doesn't this contribute towards congestion? Also, the accessibility to public transportation. It's public policy that people are expected, including seniors and the disabled, to walk up to a quarter of a mile to the bus stop. How is this accessibility? Also, employee morale. Now, I'm not familiar with the internal affairs of Muni, but I do know that bullying and harassment is a private and public concern in respect to employment. People have been bullied and harassed at the work site to the point of depression, even suicide. What plans are in place to protect employees of MTA against bullying? And fourthly, what about bicycle accidents where bicycles strike people on the sidewalk and in the intersection? What measures are being taken to protect these individuals? You've done everything to protect bicyclists against traffic injuries and everything, but somehow you leave out pedestrians and people walking on the sidewalk. And how are you going to address biking on the sidewalk illegally, which goes on day to day to the indifference of this board?
Do I have any more public comment? No? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Directors, do we have any questions or comments? I know that this strategic plan is something that we all live with every project that we work on, so we're all quite familiar with it. And I will say that I'm pleased with the updates. I think it really is helping to refine this plan and make it more pertinent to the work that we're doing now. So I'm really pleased to see that. And Mr. Fox, thank you and your team for the work on this. And Ms. Bose, thank you for contributing the financial sustainability piece. That's going to be a good thing going forward to take note of that. Directors, do I have any questions or comments?
I will just say that
Yes.
this is great. We got to look at this at the PAG just a few months ago and give a lot of input into it. So I think this very much reflects the robust discussion we had at that meeting, and we're really excited about meeting the metrics set for the next plan.
Good.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I guess I misspoke before, because after we were at the board retreat, we did have a very good in-depth conversation at the Policy and Governance Committee, and we got from both times from the board really great feedback that helped get us to a good final product. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yes, Director
I just want
Ramos.
to express my gratitude to Mr. Fox and his team and all the good work that went into this, Ms. Bose and everyone that contributed to this. It really makes for really good governance and monitoring of the overall progress of the agency in achieving its goals, and it makes for a much more structured and effective Policy and Governance Committee, that's for sure, the way that these things are laid out. I think that it's a huge amount of work that we're taking on regularly, and to have the metrics in place and have the great kind of monitoring of the progress, I think is super helpful in getting us to where we all want to be. So to see this refined plan and to see all the comments that we had made to your staff earlier, all reflected in this, I think it gives me great confidence in adopting it. So thank you all very much for your good work.
Thank you. Director Ramos, I don't think your microphone is on. Were people able to hear the director's comments in the audience?
I talk loud on purpose.
Yeah, thankfully you are. You're not loud, you're audible. All right, any other? It always seems that sometimes at the board, the biggest things that we work on have had so much input before they come to this approval process that sometimes it may seem like there's not a lot of comment right here at the end and not a lot of input, but that means that we've done a great job covering it before it gets here to this approval point. Do I have a motion to approve? And a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Hearing none. Strategic plan is approved. Thank you.